I never expected my quiet little hostel room to turn into the place where my whole life shifted. I had only checked in for a freelance photography job, for calm nights, nothing more. The hallway smelled of old wood and lavender cleaner, the kind of place where silence sits comfortably. I like that. I needed that. But on the afternoon of my first day, everything changed with one phone call. It was Lena. My friend. My straight friend, 27 years old, confident, beautiful in that soft, natural way I always tried not to think too much about. Her voice cracked with exhaustion. Can I stay with you for a few nights? I just need to get away. I didn't ask from what. The heaviness in her tone said enough. Of course, I answered, too quickly, too eagerly. The moment I hung up, my heart began thudding with a strange, nervous rhythm I couldn't explain. 2 hours later, she appeared, suitcase rolling behind her, hair messy from rushing, wearing an oversized hoodie that smelled faintly of vanilla body spray. When she saw me, she smiled in that tired way that makes your chest ache, because you know she's pretending to be okay. She hugged me longer than usual. And that alone shook something loose inside me. The room had two beds, set apart by a small wooden table, but when Lena stepped inside, she placed her bag on the bed closest to mine without hesitation, like it was the most natural choice in the world. She didn't even look at the other one. I hope this is okay, she said, sitting down so close her knee brushed mine. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, more than okay. The first evening passed in warm, familiar chatter, old stories, quiet laughter, but something in her was different, softer, more fragile. She watched me closely like she was studying me, like she needed me. When she finally lay down that night, she reached over the space between our beds and tugged gently on my blanket. You're warm, she whispered. Don't fall asleep too fast. I kind of need the company. Her fingers lingered on the fabric longer than necessary. It was subtle, barely anything, yet enough to make the air feel charged, like the quiet spark of a storm far away. I didn't know it then, but that night, that tiny moment, was the beginning of everything. By the second day, it was clear Lena wasn't just visiting, she was settling into my space like she belonged there. She unpacked her clothes onto the same shelf I was using, sliding her folded shirts right beside mine. My lotions, my snacks, even my charger became ours without a single question. She opened my bag of trail mix and ate half of it while sitting cross-legged on my bed, humming like she had lived here forever. It should have annoyed me. Instead, it warmed something inside me that I hadn't felt in years. The room was small, but the way she moved made it feel smaller, not claustrophobic, just closer. That night, she dragged her bed a little toward mine, claiming she couldn't reach the outlet for her phone. It was an excuse. We both knew it. Our beds were now angled almost like two puzzle pieces trying to fit better, she muttered, flashing a shy smile. By the third night, she didn't drag her own bed. She simply flopped onto mine with a blanket and said, I'll warm this one up for you. The casual tone didn't match the way her arm brushed mine, or the way she looked at me like she was waiting for something I wasn't brave enough to name. The small touches began stacking up like quiet confessions. Her shoulder pressed against mine while we shared a blanket to watch a late-night movie on my laptop. Her fingers brushed mine every time she passed me her water bottle, lingering just a second too long, like she needed the contact to steady herself. And the most surprising moment, when she reached over suddenly, pushed my hair behind my ear, and said softly, it was bothering me. She didn't even think about it. I did, and I kept thinking about it long after she'd fallen asleep. Each touch was innocent enough to ignore, but heavy enough that ignoring them felt impossible. By the fourth night, it wasn't just the beds that had grown closer. It was everything. Our routines had merged. She used my lotion on her hands before bed, rubbing it in slowly while sitting close enough that our knees touched. She asked if she could borrow my sweater because it smells like you, and she slipped it on with a little smile that tightened my chest. She laughed more, now softer, freer, but sometimes I caught her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking, a quiet, searching gaze that felt like a question I didn't dare answer yet. All these tiny moments didn't shout, they whispered. And in the quiet of that small hostel room, those whispers were loud enough to change everything, even before either of us was ready to admit it. It happened on the coldest night of her stay, the kind of cold that settles into the walls and steals every bit of warmth from the room. I had already crawled into my bed, wrapped snugly in my blanket, scrolling aimlessly through my phone. Lena stood in the middle of the room, rubbing her arms, teeth chattering dramatically. This hostel is freezing, she complained, pulling her hoodie tight around herself. Then she turned toward me with a little smirk. Move over, I'm getting in with you. I'll warm up faster, I laughed, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. In one smooth, confident motion, Lena lifted the edge of my blanket and slid under it beside me. Her body was cold at first, making me flinch. But she pressed closer, sighing as if she had finally found the warmest spot on earth. See, she whispered. You're a human heater. We both laughed, trying to make it light, casual, harmless. But lying with her, feeling her settle into the same space, was anything except harmless. At first, she kept a polite distance, or maybe she tried to. But as the minutes passed, as the room grew quieter and the lights dimmed, Lena shifted slightly, then again, until her forehead brushed my shoulder. I thought she would pull away. She didn't. Her arm drifted across the blanket, slow and searching, and somehow ended up resting gently around my waist. The touch wasn't intentional, not fully, but she didn't remove it either. Her fingers relaxed against my hip, warm and careful. I swallowed hard, staring at the ceiling, pretending to breathe normally. But she must have felt the tension in me, because she pressed a little closer, her chest brushing my back. Then came the moment that stole the air from my lungs. Lena exhaled, slow and soft, and her breath touched the back of my neck. Not just a breath, a warm, delicate whisper of something I had never imagined I'd feel from her. It wrapped itself around my nerves and melted straight into my heartbeat. I tried to sleep. I failed miserably. She, on the other hand, drifted off instantly. I could tell by the way her arm tightened just a little as her body grew heavier with sleep. She held me like she had done it before, like it was natural, like it was allowed. I lay there frozen, but not out of fear, out of realization, of possibility, of the spark I had spent years convincing myself could never exist between us. She was my straight friend, the friend who talked about men and never once hinted at anything more. Yet there she was, asleep in my bed, curled against me, trusting me with a closeness she had never offered anyone else. And in that still, breathless moment, I understood something. If this was an accident, it was the kind of accident that changes everything. I woke up before I opened my eyes. It was her warmth that reached me first, her arms still around my waist, her leg lightly tangled with mine, her breath a steady whisper against the back of my neck. For a moment, I wondered if I had dreamed all of it, but no. She was still there, still close, still holding me like the night hadn't ended. I stayed perfectly still. Then I felt her shift. Lena woke slowly, her fingers tightening slightly on my hip, as if making sure I was real. I could sense her confusion, her hesitation, but she didn't pull away. Instead, the bed dipped as she lifted herself just enough to look at me. She thought I was asleep. Her breath caught quiet, almost a soft gasp, as if seeing me this close startled her, but not enough to retreat. If anything, she leaned in a little more, her face hovering inches from mine, studying me with an expression I had never seen from her before. Something tender, something searching. I kept my breathing slow, terrified she would stop if she knew I was awake. She brushed a stray strand of hair off my forehead, her fingers trembling slightly. Then she whispered, barely audible, as if confessing to the air, "You're warm." Before I could react, she pressed her forehead gently against my cheek. Not a kiss, not quite, but close enough to set every nerve in my body alight. I forced myself not to move, not to give away the explosion happening inside me. She stayed there for a long moment, breathing me in, as if trying to memorize the feeling. Then, reluctantly, she withdrew slow enough that the loss of her warmth almost hurt. When she finally sat up, I opened my eyes, as if waking naturally. She jumped slightly, guilty but trying to hide it. "Morning," she said, voice too soft, eyes everywhere except on me. Breakfast in the tiny hostel kitchen felt like walking on a tightrope. We sat across from each other, eating toast and sipping the awful instant coffee the hostel provided. Every time our eyes met, Lena looked away with a shy smile when she tried to hide behind her mug. Her cheeks were a soft pink the entire time. I couldn't stop replaying her whisper, her touch, her forehead resting against my cheek like a quiet confession. She wasn't ready to speak out loud. Neither of us mentioned the night. Neither of us dared. But the air between us had changed, heavier, warmer, full of something fragile and undeniable, something neither of us knew how to name yet. By the fifth morning, everything between us felt charged with a new kind of awareness. A warmth neither of us named, but both of us carried. The hostel bathroom was small, with a frosted glass shower door that blurred shapes into soft silhouettes. I was still in bed when I heard the water running and Lena humming faintly. Then the door to the bathroom creaked open again. She had forgotten to lock it. At first, I didn't think much of it. But when I walked toward the sink to brush my teeth, the air changed. Warm steam rolled out into the hallway, curling around my ankles like a whisper. Through the frosted glass, her outline appeared, soft curves. The tilt of her head as she rinsed shampoo from her hair, her arm lifting to wipe steam from the inside of the door. I froze. She must have seen my shadow because she let out a startled little laugh. "Sorry, I forgot to lock it. I'm almost done," she called out, voice light, almost playful, but she didn't close the door. Not all the way. She left it cracked just enough that her silhouette shifted with every movement. A blurred, gentle shape framed by steam and warm light. My heart raced in my throat. She had to know I was still standing there. Then her voice came again, softer this time. "Hey, can you hand me a towel? The one on the chair?" My fingers trembled as I picked it up. I stepped closer, the heat from the bathroom brushing against my skin, and held the towel out toward the narrow opening. Her hand reached from behind the door, dripping, warm, delicate when our fingers touched. A shock of heat ran through me, sharper than the steam in the air. Her wet fingertips slid against mine for a second too long. A deliberate second. She didn't pull away. Not right away. Instead, she let out a small, breathy laugh. "I almost slipped earlier," she said. "Guess I'm not used to small showers," but her tone wasn't nervous. It was testing, soft, curious. She closed the door a little more, but not fully. I could still see the faint, blurred outline of her shoulders as she dried off. She hummed again, a slow, thoughtful sound, then stepped back from the glass, her outline inching away as she wrapped herself in the towel. When she finally emerged, her cheeks were pink from the heat, but her eyes held something quieter, heavier. She brushed past me, her damp arm grazing mine, leaving a warm trail across my skin. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She only looked at me, lips parted slightly, as if waiting for a reaction she already knew she'd get. And in that moment, it became unmistakably clear. Lena wasn't confused. She wasn't clumsy. She wasn't unaware. She was testing boundaries, gently, carefully, to see just how close I'd let her come. By the fifth morning, everything between us felt charged with a new kind of awareness, a warmth neither of us named, but both of us carried. The hostel bathroom was small, with a frosted glass shower door that blurred shapes into soft silhouettes. I was still in bed when I heard the water running and Lena humming faintly. Then the door to the bathroom creaked open again. She had forgotten to lock it. At first, I didn't think much of it. But when I walked toward the sink to brush my teeth, the air changed. Warm steam rolled out into the hallway, curling around my ankles like a whisper. Through the frosted glass, her outline appeared, soft curves. The tilt of her head as she rinsed shampoo from her hair, her arm lifting to wipe steam from the inside of the door. I froze. She must have seen my shadow because she let out a startled little laugh. "Sorry, I forgot to lock it. I'm almost done," she called out, voice light, almost playful, but she didn't close the door. Not all the way. She left it cracked just enough that her silhouette shifted with every movement. A blurred, gentle shape framed by steam and warm light. My heart raced in my throat. She had to know I was still standing there. Then her voice came again, softer this time. "Hey, can you hand me a towel? The one on the chair?" My fingers trembled as I picked it up. I stepped closer, the heat from the bathroom brushing against my skin, and held the towel out toward the narrow opening. Her hand reached from behind the door, dripping, warm, delicate when our fingers touched. A shock of heat ran through me, sharper than the steam in the air. Her wet fingertips slid against mine for a second too long. A deliberate second. She didn't pull away. Not right away. Instead, she let out a small, breathy laugh. "I almost slipped earlier," she said. "Guess I'm not used to small showers," but her tone wasn't nervous. It was testing, soft, curious. She closed the door a little more, but not fully. I could still see the faint, blurred outline of her shoulders as she dried off. She hummed again, a slow, thoughtful sound, then stepped back from the glass, her outline inching away as she wrapped herself in the towel. When she finally emerged, her cheeks were pink from the heat, but her eyes held something quieter, heavier. She brushed past me, her damp arm grazing mine, leaving a warm trail across my skin. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She only looked at me, lips parted slightly, as if waiting for a reaction she already knew she'd get. And in that moment, it became unmistakably clear. Lena wasn't confused. She wasn't clumsy. She wasn't unaware. She was testing boundaries, gently, carefully, to see just how close I'd let her come. That night felt different before it even began. The lights were off, the room quiet except for the soft hum of the hostel heater and the rhythm of our breathing. Shadows stretched across the ceiling like gentle waves, moving each time a car passed outside. It was the kind of darkness that made people honest. Too honest. We lay in our separate beds, though at this point they were pushed so close together that only a few inches of space remained. I could hear the way Lena shifted under her blanket, restless and thoughtful. She wasn't sleeping. Neither was I. Can I ask you something? She whispered into the dark. Her voice was small, vulnerable. It made my heart thud in slow, heavy beats. Yeah, I whispered back. She exhaled shakily. Why do you think things never work out for me? With men, I didn't know how to answer that. I knew her history. Sweet guys, bad guys, confused guys, guys who broke her heart without even trying. But hearing the question in that tone, it hit different. I don't know, I said softly. Maybe they just weren't right for you. She made a low, bitter sound. No one ever made me feel safe. Not really. Then, quieter? Not the way you do. My breath caught. Silence pressed around us, thick and tender. I felt the mattress dip a little as she turned toward me. Under our blankets, searching blindly, her hand found mine. Her fingers curled around my palm, warm and deliberate. I didn't move. I couldn't. She held my hand like a confession. I don't understand myself sometimes, she whispered. I don't understand. This? Her thumb brushed my skin, slow, thoughtful strokes that made my whole body tighten with awareness. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Do you ever like girls? My heart slammed hard against my ribs. The room felt suddenly smaller, closer, like the shadows had gathered around us to listen. I swallowed, choosing honesty even though it terrified me. Yes, I said quietly. I do. She inhaled sharply, not in shock, but like she'd been waiting for that answer. Like she'd needed it. Her hand tightened around mine, her fingers threading through mine under the blanket as if she had every right to be there. I thought so, she whispered. I think I've always known, and I think that's why I feel different around you. The air shifted, instantly, fragile, curious, electric. My body felt weightless, like the moment right before a fall. Except this fall felt safe. Safe in a way she had said she never felt with anyone else. She scooted a little closer, so close that I could feel her warmth through the darkness. Is it weird, she murmured, that I'm not scared of you, but I'm scared of what I'm feeling? I turned my hand, gently intertwining our fingers. No, I whispered. It's not weird at all. The room stayed quiet, but the silence had changed, no longer empty, but full of possibility, full of the next moment waiting to happen. I could tell she wasn't sleeping long before she said anything. Lena shifted again and again, rustling the blanket, sighing into the dim room. The wall clock ticked loudly, marking every second she tossed and turned. Finally, she whispered into the darkness, "Are you awake?" I hesitated. Yeah, a breath of relief slipped from her. Then timidly, "Can I lie with you, just for a little? I can't calm down." My chest tightened, but I lifted the blanket. She crossed the small space between our beds and climbed in beside me, moving slowly, like she was afraid of breaking something fragile in the air between us. The mattress dipped as she settled, and for a moment, she just lay beside me, breathing softly. Then she shifted again, closer, until her head rested right over my chest. Her hair fanned across my skin, her cheek pressed lightly against me, and my heart beat, traitorous and loud, pulsed directly beneath her ear. "I like this," she whispered, almost surprised by her own words. "It feels safe." I didn't speak. Couldn't. I just let my arm slip around her naturally, allowing her to melt against me like she had been waiting years to do it. Her hand slid to my side, fingers settling near my ribs. A moment later, her thumb began tracing small, steady circles, slow, gentle strokes that made my entire body tense and warm at the same time. I wondered if she could hear how fast my heart was beating. She definitely could. She pressed her ear more firmly against my chest. "Your heartbeat, it's so strong," she murmured, voice soft with wonder. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe evenly. The room felt heavier, warmer, filled with the kind of quiet that invites truth. Minutes passed. Her breathing slowed. Mine didn't. Then it happened, so soft, so hesitant, I wasn't sure it was real at first. Her lips brushed the top of my chest, right near my collarbone, a kiss barely there, barely a second, but real. The smallest touch, and yet it felt like the world stopped. I froze, completely. She went still too, her fingers tightening against my ribs just slightly, her breath caught in her throat. For a moment we didn't move. The room didn't move. Nothing moved. Then she whispered, fragile and trembling, "Sorry. I didn't mean," but the way her voice cracked told the truth. She did mean it. Maybe not fully, maybe not confidently, but something inside her had reached for me. Something she couldn't hide anymore. Her forehead pressed deeper into my chest, like she was afraid to look at me, afraid I would pull away. Afraid of herself, I touched her shoulder gently. "It's okay," I whispered. And in that soft, delicate moment, her hand on my ribs, her breath warm against my skin, her kiss still lingering like a secret, one truth became undeniable. Whatever this was, whatever was happening between us, it was no accident anymore. Morning arrived softly, with a pale slice of sunlight slipping through the curtains and stretching across the floorboards. The storm had passed, leaving the world damp, quiet, and strangely peaceful. But inside the room nothing felt calm. I woke to the warmth of Lena still curled beside me, her arm draped over my waist, her breath steady against my shoulder. For a few seconds I didn't move. I simply existed in that fragile bubble, her softness, her warmth, her presence. Then she stirred, her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the dim morning light. The moment she realized how close we were, how tightly she was holding me, she stiffened, not abruptly, just enough that I could feel her fear threading through her breath. She pulled her arm gently away, turned onto her back, stared at the ceiling like it held all the answers she didn't want. She didn't look at me. The silence stretched long and thin. I waited. Finally, she whispered, voice shaking, "I don't know what happened last night." Another pause, another breath. Her fingers twisted nervously in the blanket, but her voice dropped to a fragile whisper. "I don't want to pretend I didn't feel it." My chest tightened. "Lena," she sat up abruptly, burying her face in her hands for a moment before letting them fall into her lap. "I've been lying to myself for a long time." Her shoulders trembled. "About who I'm supposed to want, about what I'm allowed to feel." I moved slowly, sitting up beside her but not touching her. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I let her come to me. She finally turned her head, eyes glassy, vulnerable, honest. "I've always been drawn to you," she admitted, each word sounding like it cost her something to say. "Even when I told myself it didn't mean anything, even when I said I was straight." She exhaled a trembling laugh. "I'm not straight when I'm with you." Those words sank into the quiet morning like a warm tide, soft and inevitable. She reached for my hand tentatively, her fingers brushing mine. When I didn't pull away, she laced our fingers together tightly, like she needed the contact to hold herself steady. "I was scared," she said, "scared of losing you, scared of changing everything, scared of what it would mean if I let myself want this." Her eyes dropped to our intertwined hands. "But I do want this." I lifted her chin gently so she would face me. Her breath hitched. Sunlight caught her face, highlighting the fear, the hope, the truth she had finally stopped running from. "Lena," I whispered, "you don't have to be scared with me." She leaned closer slowly, hesitantly giving me every chance to move away. ID in single quotes this time. When her lips met mine, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't fear. It wasn't the darkness, or the storm pulling her closer. It was her. Awake, deciding, choosing me. The kiss was slow, tender, soft enough to bruise the heart. Her hand slid to the side of my neck, fingers trembling as they held me. I kissed her back gently, matching her pace, letting her explore the unfamiliar without pressure or fear. When she finally broke the kiss, she rested her forehead against mine, breathing hard. Her eyes closed, she wrapped her arms around me, then tight, protective, almost desperate, as if she were afraid letting go would break the moment, or break her courage, or break whatever fragile new thing was forming between us. "I don't know where this leads," she whispered into my shoulder, voice trembling with truth. "But I don't want to lose you." I held her just as tightly. "You won't," and for the first time, she believed it. The final night settled over the hostel like a gentle hush, the kind of quiet that feels intentional, as if the world itself knows something important is about to happen. Lena moved around the room slowly, folding her clothes, brushing her hair, but her eyes kept drifting toward me, soft, thoughtful, filled with a certainty I hadn't seen in her before. When it was finally time to sleep, she didn't hesitate. She didn't glance at her bed. She didn't hover awkwardly or wait for a sign. She walked straight toward mine. She lifted the blanket and slid in beside me like it was the most natural choice she'd ever made. Her body immediately met mine, warm and sure, her arms wrapping around my waist as if they were meant to be there. "No more pretending," she whispered into the pillow. I turned toward her, feeling the shift in the air, the surrender, the acceptance, the quiet courage she finally allowed herself. Her forehead brushed mine, her breath warmed my lips, and in that fragile closeness, everything felt suspended, beautifully suspended. She cupped my cheek, thumb brushing gently as if memorizing the shape of me. I leaned into her touch, my heart already surrendering long before my lips did. Our kiss began softly, the way new things do. Then it deepened, slow, warm, emotional, full of fear and hope braided together. Her fingers slid into my hair. My hands moved to her back, feeling her melt into me. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, just two women finally meeting in the space they'd been circling for years without knowing it. When she pulled back, her eyes were glassy with emotion. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time and realizing she didn't want to look away anymore. Lena rested her head against my shoulder, her arms sliding across my waist, holding me with a quiet, steady certainty. I felt her breath settle, slow and peaceful, like her body had been waiting for this moment to finally exhale. "I feel safe here," she murmured. "With you." The room stayed silent except for the soft hum of the heater and our breaths sensing together. Her fingers traced gentle patterns across my side, little circles, tiny lines as if grounding herself in the reality of us. We kissed again. A little longer this time, still soft, still PG-13, still full of the tender beginnings of something real. When our lips parted, we stayed close, noses touching, sharing the warmth between us like it belonged to both of us now. Eventually, she settled fully against me, legs tangled with mine, arms wrapped tight around my waist. I held her just as securely, feeling her heartbeat match mine, feeling her relax into the kind of sleep that only comes when fear finally loosens its grip. Just before she drifted off, she whispered barely above a breath, "I didn't come here to rest. I came here because I needed you." Her words folded into me, filling every quiet space, becoming the answer to every unspoken question between us. And that night hour last night in the hostel, we fell asleep in each other's arms, peaceful, certain, and no longer afraid of what we were becoming. Morning came quietly, as if it didn't want to disturb the warmth we had finally discovered. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains in soft golden stripes, brushing across the tangled blanket, across our joined hands, across the imprint of two bodies that had slept as one. Lena woke first. She didn't move right away. She simply lay there, watching me with an expression full of tenderness and fear, and something deeper, something that looked like hope. Her thumb brushed my cheek once, barely a touch, before she slipped out of bed. I watched her from beneath heavy eyelids as she began to pack her things. She moved slowly, almost reluctantly, folding her shirts with care she never showed before, smoothing her jeans, pausing every few minutes to glance at me as if checking whether I was still there, or whether she was still brave enough to leave. Her suitcase clicked softly as she closed it halfway. She didn't zip it. She stood over it for a long moment, fingers gripping the handle, shoulders rising and falling with a breath that sounded too heavy for such a small room. "I should go soon," she murmured, not turning around, but her voice didn't match the words. There was a tremble in it, a quiet ache that said she wanted anything except to walk out that door. I sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around my shoulders. "You don't have to rush." That drew her toward me. She abandoned the half-closed suitcase and crossed the small space between us, standing at the edge of my bed. Her eyes softened, and without hesitation, she cupped my face gently in both hands. Her palms were warm against my cheeks, grounding, calming. And then she kissed me. Soft, slow, lingering, like she wanted to leave a piece of herself with me. It wasn't the kiss of confusion from the storm, or the kiss of fear from the early morning shadows. This was different, awake, clear, chosen. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine for a long moment, breathing me in, memorizing the closeness. "I don't know what this is yet," she whispered, her voice trembling with honesty, "but it feels like the beginning of something I'm finally ready for." My hand slid up her sides, settling at her waist. "We don't have to figure it all out today." She smiled, small, shy, but full of relief. "I just don't want to lose this. Or you won't," I whispered. "Whatever this becomes, we can take it one step at a time." She nodded, her eyes glassy, her breath unsteady. Another soft kiss, quieter, shorter, pressed to my lips, as if sealing a promise neither of us had the courage to speak fully. Then she stepped back, zipped her suitcase, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time and whispered, "I'll come back. I promise." And with that promise hanging warm in the air, she walked out, leaving the room quieter, the bed colder, but my heart fuller than it had ever been. Sometimes, life changes in the softest moments, the ones you don't recognize as turning points until long after they've passed. I think about that now as I sit here, remembering for nights in a tiny hostel room that reshaped everything I thought I knew. I speak to you now not just as the woman who lived it, But is someone still learning how to understand it? You see, Lena was my straight friend. At least, that's the story she lived by, the one she tried to script for herself. She dated men, complained about them, laughed about their mistakes. She acted certain, confident, settled. But then she came to stay with me. And from the moment she put her suitcase on the bed closest to mine, something subtle shifted in the air, a softness, a curiosity, a warmth that she didn't know how to hide. Maybe she never tried to. I think about the night she slept too close to me for the first time, how her arm accidentally stayed around my waist, how her breath warmed the back of my neck, how my heartbeat betrayed every quiet feeling I thought I had buried. I think about the small touches, her shoulder brushing mine under one blanket, her fingers lingering on mine when she passed a water bottle, her hand fixing my hair like it was the most natural thing in the world. Tiny moments, but enough to make the space between us feel charged, like we were standing on the edge of something we hadn't named yet. Then came the night. Everything changed. The storm, the darkness, the lightning, the fear that pulled her into my arms, the accidental brush of lips, followed by the kiss she gave me deliberately, and in that moment, a friend became something more, something fragile, unexpected, and beautiful. When morning came, she admitted what she had been hiding even from herself. I'm not straight when I'm with you. Those words linger with me still. She didn't come to the hostel to rest. She came because she needed me. Needed something she didn't have the language for yet, something she was finally ready to face. Now, I carry that truth with me. The truth of the girl who kissed me in the storm, who held me like she didn't want the night to end, who whispered promises she wasn't sure how to keep but desperately wanted to. And I carry this question for you. Tell me, have you ever had a friend who crossed a line so softly, it felt like fate instead of a mistake? Fade out,